Without further ado, allow me to welcome our acclaimed and admired speaker of tonight, Ms. Anina Lambrechts. Anina is an experienced design specialist and founder at the 10/1. 10/1 was started to help new designers work on real projects with mentoring and helping to build their portfolio with real life case studies. Having been in tech for over 9 years, Anina is a remote UX designer, solving complex design problems, finding human-centric solutions, applying design thinking methods, and making things usable. Currently, Anina is creating design solutions for the edtech space and solving problems in digital health, education, fintech, and e-commerce. She is passionate about growth, productivity, and career fulfillment, which she shares through writing, mentoring, and speaking. A very warm welcome to you, Anina. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Thank you so much, Shama. That was such a beautiful introduction.
Thank you.
So welcome everyone here. I'm so excited to be here talking to all of you, and I'm just really honored being in this space. I'm going to share my screen, so give me a second to set that up for us. There we go. I'm sure you can all see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen, Anina.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so once again, welcome to this info session. We were speaking about design career paths, and today I actually will be talking about how you can design your design career. So of course I've been introduced, but I'd like to introduce myself as well. So I'm Anina. I am also a skill mentor at IPL for the ICUX Flex course. Like Shama mentioned, I've been in the industry for over 9 years. So I've played many different roles in different areas. I've been freelancing, I've been an agency, I've been working in startups and also corporate. So through this journey, I really learned and crafting my skill. And now I'm growing as a designer. I can also have the abilities to help other designers, help them find their paths, their skills, and grow in their careers to be really better designers. So design careers might sound very daunting and overwhelming, especially if you look at all the titles and all the unicorn job descriptions. But today I'm not going to talk about UX titles, because I'm going to talk really about career paths and how you choose one, how you define who you are and as a designer and where you fit in. But most importantly for me, design is about where you add value, where you add the most value, where you can have impact. And of course, enjoying this, enjoying design, enjoying this journey. So let's jump right into it. Always a quote. I love quotes, so do bear with me with the quotes. So this is very familiar to designers. Life is a series of building, testing, changing, and iterating. And so is your career. You have to build it, you have to test it, and it keeps on changing, and it keeps on iterating it to make it better and better. So what am I going to talk about today? Firstly, you are not your title. Your title doesn't determine your value. Your actions determine your value. You are your skills. Skills help us to really choose the role that fits us best. And then lastly, you're in it for the long haul. So it's an ever-evolving and growing experience. And your career in design is exactly like UX, a process. So let's start. Okay, this is where I joined. So who are you? And I would like you all to take just 5 seconds and answer this. Who are you? But remember, you're not your title. So this might be actually quite difficult because we put a lot of value and who we are on our titles. So please take a stab at it and do leave your comments below. I'd like to see what you've written down. So to know your career, to know what career path you want to take, you need to understand yourself first. So Michelle Obama has this amazing quote that says, "Success isn't about how your life looks to others. It's about how it feels to you." And in design and in most careers, we get this idea that certain titles equal success. But success is really what we define it to be for ourselves. That's why we start with self-reflection. You have to dig a little bit deeper into who you are. And you might do some personality tests to kind of get an idea about your life and your career strengths and weaknesses. But this is just a guide. It's not set in stone. It can change over time. But the point is you have to start somewhere. You have to start reflecting on yourself. So why? Why do I need to know who I am? I'm just wanting to do, a UX design role. So first is life and work and career is not separate from each other. We like to separate them from each other, but they're really not. We need to find coherency between work and life. We need to know who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And if there's no coherency between these things, you actually might be in conflict, and every Sunday you might dread the next day. And we don't want that in the design career. So I'll be sharing a little bit about myself. This is quite personal, but I'm happy to share this with you. So who am I as a designer? I solve problems. That's who I am. What do I believe in? I believe in helping people. That gives me meaning. And why do I do it? Tech enables me, it gives me that opportunity. It's my responsibility. So I would like you all, as quite practical, this is going to be a little bit practical now and again, and just write that down. Who are you really? What do you believe in? And why do you do what you do? This is really important. And you'll see the relationship as we continue with this presentation. Cool. So what do you enjoy? When we ever look at our careers, we barely go into what we enjoy. We look at titles and job descriptions as if somehow what everyone else is writing is what we should be doing or should enjoy. But that's not true. You have to take the time and think about the things that you enjoy. So why? Why do you need to know what you enjoy? Because this can be a strong indicator where your passion lies and where we need you to be as a designer. That's where you're going to add the most value in human-centered design. So I've shared some of my examples as well. And for me, it's really an alignment with my career and my life. And for me, career and personal growth is at the top of it. I enjoy creating healthy habits, to be productive as a remote designer. That's very important. Traveling and exploring gives me inspiration. Human interaction helps me be a better designer. And then, of course, cognitive psychology learns me more about human behavior, and that I'm using that for better experiences. And then education, teaching, mentoring, presenting to you today. That all is for me what I enjoy doing. And it's important because it also aligns with what I'm good at. So you'll start seeing relationship between what you enjoy and what you're good at. But if you don't, that's okay. Sometimes we are good at things that we actually don't enjoy. And that's going to be important because you're going to add value to a company or to that role. And if there's things that you enjoy and you're not yet good at that, you can focus on those things so that you can become good at that. Because if you have a good at something, a strength, as well with some passion, that's really where you're going to make the most difference in design. That's really the role you're going to apply for. So remember to be honest with yourself. You're not competing with anyone else. I know it's a very competitive market out there, but what we need right now is you to be you. So please be honest with yourself and do some self-reflection. This is for your future self. And you just have to be honest with yourself. Cool. Okay, cool. So that was about who you are, and hopefully you kind of know, who you are. If you don't, you can do this exercise afterwards. But now we're going to look at different design shapes, and we're going to look a little bit more into your skills. So what type of designer are you? Good question. Well, you know your title, and your title might not be who you are. So here I've said, when you know who you are and what type of designer you want to be, you can start mapping out where you want to be to make the right career decisions. So this is a mouthful. But basically, I like to focus on skills, qualities, and passions. Too many times I've seen designers try for titles. And title, remember, means different things across different companies, cultures, teams, and industries. It's far too easy for us to have this intention to say, no, you know what, I want to have the right career, but actually you're looking at job titles. And I don't even want to go into job descriptions because it just drives me crazy. It's unrealistic expectations and putting a lot of pressure on designers to be it all, right? But I'm telling you, you don't have to do it all and be great at it all. If you are though, please do contact me. You might be just superhuman. But most of us really just have let's say approximately 5 skills, right? And one of 2 of those skills we're really exceptional in. So we need to make sure we focus on those exceptional skills. So of course, I'm not saying you only do 1 or 2 skills and the rest like you just ignore. No, but what I'm saying is those skills is going to be important for your job. It's going to add value and it's going to make you grow as a designer. And those are the type of things you're going to look for in job descriptions. If you've got 2 really strong skills, you would want to see them match in your job description. You need to know what you're looking for, but you only can do that if you know what you want. So let's have a look at the different shapes in design. There's 3 different shapes, which I'm briefly going to talk about. You can Google it, it's all across the internet. So an I-shaped designer really is someone that just specializes in one industry. Let's say you're just a graphic designer and that's your specialty, and you have really to know knowledge about UI design or UX design or product design for that matter. So this is a very rare, we have an I-shaped designer. Then we look at T-shape. Some of you have already might have seen this. So this is quite popular, and most of us, we further in the career would probably be at a T-shaped skill set. So when we look at T-shape, basically the vertical line is your specialty. So if that is UI design, that will be a UI design line. And then the horizontal line would be, for example, you'd be interested in marketing design, web design, branding, print, all of those things. So you'll have a little bit more of a general knowledge about other disciplines too. But you still specialize in your one, let's say, UI design role. Then we get to V-shape. This has been introduced quite fairly new, I think. And this is an interesting one because what the V-shape really means is you have, think about it like filling from the top to the bottom, right? So where the 2 V's, kind of the 2 lines connect, that's your speciality. So that's the most deepest skill you'll have from top to bottom. The 2 side arms is really supporting that speciality. Let's say it's UI design in this example. You'll have on the one side, let's say user research, interaction design, you'll have graphic design, you'll have visual design. And the closer it is to your middle center, which is UI design, the more knowledge you'll have about that. So it fills up from the top to the bottom. And the further away from that middle, the less skill or knowledge you'll have about that. But you have a quite decent amount and fair amount of not just your speciality in depth, but also from other kind of skill sets in that. But remember, what's important about the V-shape really is that you have to focus on what complements your speciality so that it enhances that skill. But it's important, if there's any generalist or anyone starting out in UX on this call today, you have to start at a general knowledge based, because you cannot choose the speciality if you haven't even experienced all the different roles, all the different skill sets yet. So best is to start as a generalist, and maybe you want to stay a generalist, and that's also fine. And maybe you want to grow in a specific speciality. These are all just guides to help you figure out, what's going to be complementary to my current skill and where I want to grow into. And yeah, this can change. I'm not stuck with like set in stone with these shapes. Most often than not, they actually happen quite organically. And that's quite amazing without you even realizing. And that's how it happened for me, of course. I didn't know about this V-shape. It didn't exist until I found it earlier, I think last year. So it's not something that you have to, follow strictly, but it's to give you a good general idea of where you want to move into. So cool, we know who we are, hopefully, what type of designer shape you're working towards. We just discussed that. And now we need to know where we are before we can actually move forward. So we're going to map out our skills to find out where we are and then where we want to go. Another quote, of course. So growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. So let's get unstuck. You're not a tree. We'll start by mapping out your skills. So this is a really fun activity. These quadrants can be found all over the web. And this one will include user research, usability, information architecture, interaction design, visual design, content strategy, UI and UX prototyping, and UX leadership. So what you'll do with this quadrant is you'll measure your skill set from 1 to 5, where 1 is like maybe not that great, you know, and 5 is like, I feel really confident in this, I'm great at this specific skill set. Then this is mine. So you'll fill it in, you'll start drawing it in and measure your skills. So for me, of course, I focus a lot on usability, user research, leadership, less prototyping and UX writing, and of course, not very much focus on the interaction skills or the visual skills at this moment. There was a phase in my career that I, had to do, of course, these type of skills. But right now, it's kind of like going into, I think, a loop-sided V shape, if you would say that. And these things are all a compilation of things that I enjoyed, things that I'm good at, and things like stuff I want to be, the designer I'm working towards. So for you, do this quadrant. It's a fun activity, but be honest, make sure that you have an accurate representation of where you are right now, because we want to figure out where we want to go next. So I followed in with the green, and that just means things that I need to improve on, things I want to focus on, I need to get better at. So you might ask, like, why and how do I choose these options? So for me, my specialty is in research and usability and readership. So I need to improve on information architecture, because that will make me better at categorizing user needs, better at card sorting, and that improve user research, right? I need to get better at prototyping, because that will help me be better at usability. So see how I'm using all these additional skills, maybe not my main skills, but the secondary skills to really make me better at my specialized or the exceptional skill that I have. So this was a quick one. I hope that you all bear with me with my accent and the tempo I speak. I was really excited to have you all here, and I'm going to end off the session to say to infinity and beyond. So UX career paths isn't rocket science. Even though we like to overcomplicate the roles, the titles, and the job descriptions, it's just not. So I'm going to leave you with this. We cannot design the best experiences for our users if we don't apply our skills and strengths where we can make the biggest difference. So in the end, our responsibilities as designers is to make better experiences for humans. That's the ultimate goal. So go out and do just that. Design your design career independent of your title. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This was a really short and sweet one. I really hope you took some valuable lessons from here, and we're going to be open for questions, and I'm really eagerly here to help you.
Thank you so much for the amazing insights, Anina.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shama.
Yeah. So moving on to the next part of the session, please allow me to welcome our very distinguished and renowned speaker of tonight, Professor Pinkesh Shah. Professor Shah is a senior faculty, director of programs at the Institute of Product Leadership, and was most recently the Global VP of Product Management at McAfee. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Shah. Kindly take this session forward.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for the intro. You guys can see me okay?
Yes, we can see you.
I see that the video is stopped. Are you guys able to hear me okay, but can you see me as well?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think my video is on. Can somebody turn or give me access to, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep, that's good. Thanks, Pinkesh.
Okay, super. So I think you guys can hear me, you can see my screen, and you can see me, yeah? Is that a check for all three? Yeah? No, okay, so some of you can't see me.
Just trying to fix it, Professor Shah. Just give me a moment.
Okay, super. Well, while that happens, I just wanted to kind of echo what Anina said, and as a coach, experts like Anina are super crucial to building an ecosystem. So I wanted to appreciate, Anina, you spending some time with the team. As a faculty, as a mentor, all of us have been fortunate to get you know, a good coach and a good mentor in our lives, which kind of helped us shape and become who we have, right? So most recently, by the way, I was the global vice president for product management at McAfee, you know, one of the business units there. I'm based out of California in United States for the last 18 years, but very actively teach at the Institute of Product Leadership and a couple other places. As a practitioner, I think it's important that we all kind of pay it forward as well. So while the video shows up, let me kind of give you 3 additional quick tips, you know, as kind of Nina set the stage for some quick tips, and as you kind of think through your career, right? You know, first is to always make sure that you're looking at all 3 lenses from a hiring perspective, right? So, you know, you're not just being looked at when you're interviewing, when you're due for a promotion, you know, beyond titles. Again, I loved what Anina said, you know, stop looking at titles, start looking at roles and scope. But again, beyond scope, which is the functional skills that you have to demonstrate, look at your leadership skills, look at your domain skills. At the end of the day, if I'm hiring in McAfee, I would prefer to hire somebody from Symantec. I would prefer to hire somebody from Quick Heal. I would prefer to hire somebody from a similar domain and industry. Now, that doesn't mean that people cannot make that shift from one domain to another, but it's harder, right? So you need to be ready to balance your score across all 3 lenses, right? Your leadership lens, you know, the ability for you to communicate, art of storytelling, conflict management, leading by influence, you know, listening skills and empathy. All of these are very, very important leadership skills. And then obviously you have the functional skills. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well in breaking it down further to what is required in a typical product design role. And the third is your domain skills. So make sure that you have a broader spectrum of combination of all 3. My tip number 2, I think you got to go from being a utility player to a full stack professional. And in full stack, you know, in the case of product, you know, is 25 different competencies that you would need for product management, right from, you know, technical, you know, product management to inbound product management to outbound product management, you know, or also called product marketing, and so on and so forth. In the context of UX, you know, that full stack is really going from what Anina, you know, articulated very well, which is kind of going from the vectors of different skills within UX and UI careers. But if you were to stretch this a little bit more in a simplified way, I'd say you start from the problem all the way to the solution. So some of you are going to love and enjoy working in the problem space. And the kind of roles that you want to seek there are more user researcher, design strategist, UX designer, and so on and so forth. Some of you are going to enjoy spending a lot more time within the UX and UI design careers on the solution side, which means you're going to spend a lot more time in visual design, interaction design, interface design, you know, making sure that the screens and the latest, you know, toolkit to be able to kind of create a high fidelity wireframe so that engineers can then develop that is kind of where you would spend time. And obviously somewhere in between is going to be an overlap for the rest of you. Now, the good news is that you can start from either direction and move to cover other aspects of this in all directions. And that's kind of what we mean, what we kind of call, what we refer to as a cross-functional skills, and really getting back to that full stack designer. And I think the market requires now and is high in demand for those who can stretch that muscle to kind of go from just that visual design, icon design, prototyping, all the way to customer centric, you know, service design, user experience design. And so if I were to build this out in a simple formula, just like I showed you for product management, for a full stack designer, you have UX design, UI design, product design, which is interesting aspects of how the product is getting absorbed, how the product gets used, how the users are digitally or otherwise on board, and what's the service experience, right from the time you stand in the queue at Disneyland till you actually get to the ride. There's a lot of design. And then the last part is your business design, which is, do you understand the financial optics? It's one thing to make an awesome, delighting user interface. It's another thing to know how it's going to be monetized. And if you knew that, if you had elements of understanding of how business design works, perhaps it will make you, do different things. Perhaps the decisions would be different in the way you would design if you knew the other part. And that's why the market always looks for what we call the full stack designer, right? And those are the kind of 4 components. My third and the last tip, and I'm going to pause for any questions, is what I really like what Paul Heckel mentioned, a few years ago. And he said, look, everybody has an opinion. All of us have opinions about certain things. And that allows people to kind of, misleadingly think that they're an expert on that topic, right? So in the case of user interfaces, Paul kind of made a very prolific statement. He said, look, everybody has an opinion on how the Zomato screen should look like, how Microsoft Teams should be rearranged in their interface, how this particular packaging of fruit juice should be relabeled. While we all have certain preferences, likes and dislikes, we are not necessarily an expert having the skill, and that's the key important thing. Knowledge is not the same as having the skill. Knowing something is not the same as having the skill for it, right? In fact, if you look at the 4 hierarchy of how adult education works, how executive education works, it's very important to remove this blind spot. Psychologists call this fancy term cognitive bias. If you've not heard this term, do a quick Google search and you'll find a reference to this. But it's really blind spot, right? In a simplifying cognitive bias, we think of who we are, who we really are not, right? And the best way to understand this is that there are 4 layers of knowing. The word knowing or knowledge kind of manifests itself in 4 layers. One is having the awareness for it, which is the outermost shell. Second, having the right literacy. I can frame sentences. I can use buzzwords in that space. I can have conversations, and that's literacy. The third, which is where the real impact starts, is the skill. Not only do I know how to do it, but I can apply that in a problem context, in a particular situation, and solve that, right? The ability for doing that is really a skill. So and of course, the fourth one is being an expert, right? So, anybody who's an expert in that space is not only just helping themselves, they're helping their company build a whole process around design, how to hire designers. In fact, mentors like Anina are now going outside of their own kind of organizational zone and impacting a community. You are now a coach helping others get better. So that's the expertise level, right? So start with awareness is good, but don't stop at awareness. Reading a bunch of blogs, a bunch of videos is good. It's a great start. That does not mean you're skilled at it, right? So, ask the hard question, do I know things or do I have the skills for things? And I think that's kind of the very important aspect that I wanted to share on how you go into much deeper aspects of skilling as opposed to just knowing something. Yeah. Hopefully that gives you some rapid fire tips, but I know this is an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I'd rather just kind of also make it short and quick like Anina, and then open it up for questions if you guys have any.
Thank you, Professor Pinkesh, for that amazing insights, definitely. So, we can see you now.
Yeah.
Now we can. Right. So let's start taking the Q&A. Anina, and are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. So the first question is how to enhance customer user experience across various channels like WhatsApp bots. Would you like to take that, Anina?
Okay, great. So I'm assuming that's not really career related, but in terms of enhancing any user experience across various channels like WhatsApp, I'm going to ride on Pinkesh's presentation as well. Have the awareness of knowing that you need to improve this, experience. and now you need to go out and actually start solving this problem. So I don't think I can solve the problem for you right now, but I would definitely recommend you learning more about UX to see that you can, how to solve this problem. I myself is actually working on a very similar problem at the moment. So I'm quite curious whoever this anonymous attendee is, maybe we can chat afterwards. But yes, I would definitely recommend going into, using the UX methodology as your problem statement and working through that to really get to a kind of solution.
All right. I hope that answers the question. And our next question is, what is business design? Do you mean understanding? What is business design? Do you mean understanding ecosystem?
Yes, I can take that. And,
All right.
and so it kind of goes, beyond understanding the ecosystem. It also gets into unit economics, pricing, packaging, monetization models. If I were to design, since the question earlier was about WhatsApp, if I were to design something as an app, or as a chatbot, or even WhatsApp in general, I would do it differently had I known that this is the monetization model to do a freemium, which is free for now, and then some customers will start paying and it will become premium. So that's why the word freemium. It'd be a different design had I known, okay, I'm going to sell this for $5,000 a license per customer, per company. It'd be a different design, had I known it's actually a subscription and somebody can sign on and off. Imagine if Gmail was on subscription, WhatsApp was on subscription. It'd be a different design if I were to do pay-per-use. Imagine if WhatsApp was allowing you to send 1,000 messages per penny. And every time you finish sending 1,000 messages, you have to now load up your card with another $1, right? It'd be very different designs, very different approach on how you would solve the same problem, but in a different context. And I think getting that context is very, very important, which will allow you to design better if you knew the business context, if you had the business design aspects of it. In fact, let me share my screen one more time, Shama, if that's okay, and I can walk you through
Yes, please.
some of the core courses that are also designed as part of the IC UX program. One of the things that we strongly, let me see if I can go full screen. So while what you see, and again, all of these details are on the website, on the course page, so I think definitely take a look at it. But one of the things that was a big debate that went inside the curriculum design for about a year and a half, while the program is now launching a few months ago, there's a lot of work that has happened over several months now. And one of the debate was, what are the core fundamental, skills that every designer needs to have? And then at that point, what we call the additional, modules. And that's why these are electives now, where some of you may want to kind of go much more deeper in different aspects of that full stack design. Remember, the full stack design formula, I don't know if I have it here, is really this, right? And so it's not just enough to stop. It's great to start, but it's not enough to stop at mastering one area, which could be, let's say, user research or prototyping in UI design. But to kind of go beyond that, because the market requirements and the demand for full stack designers is very, very high, right? So hopefully that allows you to understand that business design, while it's design, it's elements of the business, the pricing, the packaging, the financial aspects, the monetization aspects, the revenue models aspect, which is also crucial for you to have an orientation, right? And if you're not good at it, if you have certain missing gaps, this is one of those electives that you want to take, in addition or in lieu of the core courses that you see in this particular program. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. I don't know if whoever asked the question, if you want to come on air and have a follow-up for that.
Yes, that would be great, because I'm not able to see the name. It comes as anonymous attendees. Nonetheless, we have another question from Rishabh, Professor Shah. Okay, so it's like the variety of terms in UX are often very confusing. Could you recommend some way of finding out a real interest area?
Okay, great. I won't mind answering that one. So yeah, it'd be nice to know if you would want to speak up a little bit after this, but you are right, it can be confusing, but I did that skill mapping, and I think that really is a good way to start if you are aware of the different UX terms out there, and start seeing what attracts to you. So the entire, my presentation really focused a lot on finding who you are and what you enjoy before looking at UX itself. Because what you don't want is UX determining which roles you should be filling, but rather you determining which roles you want to fill. So it's going to take a lot of research in the beginning to find out the different roles. And Pinkesh is actually showing quite a few options at the background as well from the 5, core courses. And these will really give you an in-depth idea of the variety of UX, but also getting an idea of where you would want to start out. So starting out would really be great, as like I mentioned, as a generalist. So starting out taking a UX and a UI course would be your first step to get just an idea of what it's more about, because there's so many roles, and I don't want you to be hung up about those different roles. I would rather have you taking a course on, learning more about UX as a generalist perspective before you actually go and choose something. Because I think if you choose something right now, how would you know that's the right choice? So first explore all these different courses, I would say.
Just to add to what Anina said, as part of the enrollment of many of these programs, I mean, this is just one of them at the Institute of Product Leadership, but there are probably a couple more in the US which are very good. UC Berkeley runs a good program. Stanford runs a good program. A lot of these programs, they have built-in personalized assessments. And these are great instruments for you to map out where you are, vis-a-vis what is expected in the market, right? And every one of you is different, especially if you're a working professional. You may have skewed yourself in a certain zone a lot more than the other. And that's absolutely okay. I think the key is to finding out. It's almost like a blood test, right? While we all feel we're healthy, it's always good to get that blood test done, which is an unbiased, independent opinion, a more scientific way of figuring out if I'm deficient in vitamin B, for example. So I think that assessment is going to be part of the system as well. And one of the things that works in programs like these is that now that you have your kind of DNA fingerprinting done, and we know where your gaps are, the coaches will now work with you specifically, who are experts in that area, right? So that's absolutely a crucial element of decision making and the program's experience as well, to not only assess you continuously, not just at the beginning, but also help with those gap areas by assigning a specific coach who's an expert at that area.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Shah. Our next question is, how does one start a career in design management? What are the required industry skills?
It's a pretty loaded question. I think, I'll try to give a simpler
answer.
Very
open-ended question.
Maybe I'll ask Anina to elaborate if she wants to. But, look, I think a lot of people are what I call having a cold start problem. And a cold start problem is, hey, I want to go climb Mount Everest, but where do I start? And I always recommend, no matter what your goal is, obviously understand the GPS coordinates and the lay of the land and understand the map, but you have to start at the base. You have to start walking somewhere, right? Because otherwise you end up spending years in just analyzing and not really starting that journey. So I really don't think you need to have a whole lot of prerequisites for becoming a product designer. I think you need to have a good appetite to learn. I think you need to have a good empathy to kind of figure out what customers and users really care for. And third, I would say, is your ability to devise delighting solutions to those market problems that you have discovered or that you have uncovered in the first phase, right? So I think the combination of these three things is, in my opinion, good enough for anyone, whether you are a fresher, just graduating from college, or whether you have 10 years of experience, doing project management, engineering, something else. I don't think there's a restriction on who can enter this zone and when. as long as you have the certain, tenacity and appetite that, look, I want to kind of solve problems, right? That problem solving, passion is probably very, very crucial. The ability to understand users and psychology and listening to see how they're struggling is probably the next one. Yeah, Anina, anything else?
Yes, I mean, design management is it's quite close to me. So I would like to give an idea about getting started in design management. I almost says it doesn't happen by choice, if that makes sense, because you have to, like Pinkesh said, you have to work yourself up, right? So if you think about hierarchy, design management is like in that hierarchy, but it also, you have to be a leader as well. And I feel if you need to kind of break it down. What do you want to be a design manager because of the promotion, because of the success behind it, or because of the title? Or do you want to be a leader, which means you don't have to have that title. You can be a leader and manage people and do design without being a design manager. And you really need to say, I like breaking things down to the simplest form before you go to this big Mount Everest, like Pinkesh said, is like at the base of it, what do you really want to achieve? And then you do small steps every day. You don't climb Mount Everest in one day, right? So with design management, is that if that's your goal because you have this leadership in you that you want to contribute, and that's the only way that you can do it in your company, then start small. Start by knowing design in and out. You really have not just UX or not just UI. You need to understand product design, UI design, UX design, business design. You have to have a quite broad understanding, because at that level, you're going to interact with design management executives and marketing and finance, a lot of different role players. So make sure that you know what you want. And then the skills required is really your experience. And then of course, I think something we miss a lot is the soft skills that goes with that. And that's really important, because as a design manager, you'll be working with people and you'll need to have those soft skills. And that's something that can't be taught. That is something really that you either have, that's part of you. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on design management.
Yeah. And I like that Anina also brought up what I said in the original tip, the 3 things we talked about. It's the leadership skills, the functional skills, the domain skills, right? And I think what we're talking about when we talk about design is a function. You have functional skills, the kind of things that we just talked about, mapped to these 4 or 5 courses perhaps. But what's even more important is to not, like I said, lose focus on the first part, right? The design, the leadership skills. And one of the things that, we also emphasize is that, when you do a learning by doing approach to learning, you end up honing that skill. So for example, you will have, 20 different assignments in this course, in this program, but more importantly, 5 different industry projects that you will actually be presenting the work that you have done for each of those 5 courses back to an open jury. Now, your ability to articulate is equally important to your ability to design, right? Because otherwise great ideas remain in your head, perhaps on your PowerPoint, but never gets implemented because somebody did not get convinced. And I think that whole project-driven learning, where you're applying continuously every week, every month with a live project, will also help you shape and hone that storytelling skills, that communication skills, the presentation Zen skills, and so on and so forth. So I think that's an important element that I'm glad you brought it up, Anina.
Professor Shah, you're cracking up a little bit.
Oh, is it better now?
Not really, but we have a very interesting question from Purushottam, and I encourage Purushottam to come online and ask this question. Are you there? If you can raise your hand, I can unmute you. Okay, guess not. So his question is, a lot of people...
Sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, yeah.
Hi, Pinkesh. Hi, Anina. Thank you for a great session. I think you guys already answered most of what I wanted to know, but I mean, a lot of people plan to transition from their current careers into UX design. I mean, apart from building your portfolio, how do you convince recruiters to hire you from a sea of people who would probably have more experience than you? I mean, how do we start getting into the Shark Tank, so to speak?
I think this is a great question, and a question that gets asked by, just about every working professional, who I get a chance to mentor. And I think my predictable way to do this, while there is a get lucky way of doing it, Purushottam, there's a predictable path of doing this, which is you don't lead with your resume, you lead with your portfolio, right? Because resume based hiring, in my opinion, and I'm slightly more uh, uh, blunt about it,
It's
is
dead.
resume based hiring is dead.
Dead.
Absolutely dead, right?
Yeah.
Nobody gives a damn about your resume in some sense. Now, I'm not saying don't have a good resume. Of course, you need to have a good resume as a placeholder with the right keywords. But trust me, everybody has a great resume. Everybody has great keywords. That's what we call, in fact, in the recruitment space, called keyword stuffing. So everybody is smart enough to put all the right keywords. That doesn't get you much further. What gets you to convince the hiring manager who who is looking at you, perhaps with little experience to no experience in this space, right? We have a lot of our alumni who were 10 plus years of experience in engineering, project management, business analysis, and now, all of a sudden become product managers, user experience designers, obviously with 0 years of experience on their CV, on their resume. The only way to predictably convince the hiring manager is to tell them that, look, here is an example of my portfolio projects that I have worked on. So this is what I'm capable of doing, right? And I think that becomes a very predictable path for the hiring managers to look at and say, okay, your combination of leadership skills, your combination of functional skills supported by your portfolio, and your combination of domain. The fact that you have 10 years of experience in some domain makes you attractive, especially in that domain, right? So if for all of a sudden, let's say you've spent a lot of time in e-commerce, well, Flipkart is going to love you as they hire designers. If you've done a lot of work in industrial systems and designing, physical objects, well, the Caterpillar crane design role is going to, be exciting because, you have done that work before. So that's the way to do it. What you can control is your portfolio. Everything else is all very kind of luck by chance type of thing, but it's happening. Lots of people are able to make the transition. It's also about networking, accessing the right set of people. But most important is your portfolio. So I would say that's the predictable way of doing it, Purushottam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I would like to add on to that,
Yes,
if
please.
we have time. So portfolio, Pinkesh, you're right, portfolio is everything. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into portfolio because you have a portfolio, you have a website, and you send it to recruiters, and yet nothing come back. So when it comes to portfolio, because it's so vital, and you're competing to a lot of people, your portfolio have to have real world case studies that you working on. And it's not really about the outcome. I think we need to remember this, designers, is it's not always about the outcome. It's really about our design thinking process and document how we think. And working through a lot of mentees, that is usually what lack. We have the steps and process that we need to follow in a UX method, but there's no coherent, almost alignment or thread that I can pull through. So writing great case studies, that will get your recruiter's attention, definitely. And then secondly, if you're transitioning from another role, see if you can leverage from those things. Like Pinkesh said, if you're in e-commerce, you can actually leverage those experience, even though it's not related to design. That's going to be things that they're going to look for, because design companies love diversity. They love different perspectives. So if you can bring another perspective into a role, then another designer might have the experience in the specific design role, you would get that job, right? Because you are adding value in a different way. So make sure if you're transitioning, see if there's some leverage that you can use and put on your portfolio. And then lastly, I always say this, is your portfolio is you. So make sure when I see your portfolio, I know who's Purushottam, right? It needs to portray your personality. So for me, really key is portfolio is key. It has to have your personality, great case studies about your design thinking, and leveraging from your current or previous career into the new role.
Thanks, Anina.
Yeah, I think if some of you also want to set up a quick 5-minute, 10-minute call with any one of us, happy to do so. Work with the team, locally in India, but because each one of you is slightly different, right? And so while we're saying works in 95% of the cases, once we look at your resume, once we look at your background, if there's a very specific thing that you are trying to achieve, then we can kind of customize that path or advice for you. So feel free to, set up a quick one-on-one call with any one of us. Happy to help.
Sure. Thank you for that, Professor Shah. Purushottam, that was a great question. So moving on to our next question, and in view of time constraints, I believe this is going to be a last question. So how can I improve my UX UI skills to grow further? And also, addition to that, what skills in UX UI design program are covered? Professor Shah, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I think that's the one that I was showing earlier. Let me share the screen. Perhaps they missed seeing that. And a lot of this is also on the website, but the 5 fundamental, core skills that you need to develop within a UX and a UI design career is the 5 that you see on the screen. So instead of me repeating it, I think you guys can all see it. If you have specific questions on it, ask us. But these are the 5 pillars of what every global designer needs to have, right? Now, if you want to further enhance and go deeper as you become a full stack designer, then these are the 4 additional areas where you can kind of call it you became a doctor, now you're going to become a little super specialist, right? And so this would be the necessary electives that you add on, or in many cases, if some of you already have proficiency in, let's say some of you are very good in visual design, and you don't want to go through a visual design whole course which typically takes 3-4 weeks, and you want to skip that. You can take a proficiency test, challenge the system by saying, hey, look, I already know this. You take a proficiency test, and if the faculty and the mentor see that, oh wow, you really know this, you skip that, which means instead of getting this program done in 5 months, you can now do it in 4 or 3, right? So it depends on what your so it's kind of, the program is also designed in an adaptable way for you. So you can kind of go, shorter, or you can go longer and cover the rest of the spectrum as well in terms of specialization. But to answer the question, these are the 5 fundamental, competencies you really need to be a industry ready, designer.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Shah. There is Tushar wanting to ask us a question, Professor Shah. Should I allow it? I know it's already time and we need to wind up. But Tushar, could you come online and ask the question quickly? I guess not.
That's fine. I mean, I think it is getting late for folks in India as well. So I'm actually okay. It's a lovely morning here for me, but it's kind of getting late for some of you. So feel free to set up a call or send us the questions, and we can kind of answer it offline as well.
Yes, I see a lot of questions coming up in the Q&A session, window session. But in the view of the time constraints, we will have to conclude today's session. But please go ahead and book your 30-minute session, one-on-one session with the faculty for any further questions. And coming to the conclusion of the session, we have enjoyed having you with us, Anina, Professor Shah. It has been a complete pleasure. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and amazing insights drawn from your years of research and experience in the industry. I strongly believe that our audience can definitely benefit from the methods you suggested and get ahead in their career. So thank you once again for joining in and making the session a huge success.
Absolutely pleasure. And, I always keep it at the back of my wall. I'm going to shift a little bit to see if you guys can see it. Life is short, build stuff that matters. And I think as a designer, you are going to directly impact this not just for your careers, do what's relevant, right? But also build better products for the rest of humans and and mankind. So I think it's a very important and a very serious role in some sense, that you're actually shaping the way people interact with things, whether it's technology or whether it's outside of technology, it doesn't matter. So wish you all the best in that journey, and happy to help. Just let us know how. Yeah.
Beautiful, Professor Shah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Anina, once again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really, sorry, Shah, I really appreciate it. And if everyone wants to get in touch with me, please do. I'm more than happy to assist with any of the questions that we didn't get to today.
Great. So a design career is not a subject that you can get answers to within an hour, and hence I encourage the audience to reach out to us on our website for detailed information on the ICUX Flex program. You can send an email to us on engage@ipl.edu.in. And also, folks, do not miss out on the opportunity to apply for the Norman Scholarship. Thank you once again, guys. Have a great night. Happy learning and stay skilled.